I want to remind everybody this five ways between yourself, King Booker, John Cena, Bobby Lashley, and Randy Orton for the WWE title. I mean, pretty impressive that you haven't exactly been a regular performer, and now here you are in a main event for a title.
Right.
It's got to be pretty cool to know that, hey man, there's still a lot of faith and confidence in me.
Yeah, it was a fun concept for the idea because every one of the five participants was a former WWE champion. The one thing in the course of the booking, the week before I had this match, I had a match with Umaga where he basically squashed me.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not somebody who cares that much about wins and losses as long as they make sense. That one did not seem to make sense a week before the pay per view, because I think if anything, the fans should have been given the idea that, hey, this guy's been out of it. He's a danger at any time. He could win this thing. I don't understand. I mean, I do understand building up Umaga and getting him a win, but I did not think that was the time to be doing it, especially with a guy going into a pay per view main event the next week.
As you said, it's the go home edition of Monday Night Raw. It's in Richmond, Virginia, I believe, and it goes like 2 minutes. And then 6 days later, here you guys are at the pay per view in Houston, the Toyota Center. I do want to ask, because let's just call it like it is. You were a quote unquote part time guy here.
Yep.
And now you're going to be coming in and taking one of those elusive main event spots. And there's been some guys who've had some rumblings over the years that they don't think that's fair that The Rock comes back and he gets a WrestleMania main event or whatever. And you've always been the ultimate brother amongst the boys. Chat me up. Did you feel any of that pushback, or is it different because, well, you're you?
Well, I asked Edge about that when we were working in 2006, and he goes, Mick, he said, that doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
He says, what the guys have problems with is someone coming in for 1 or 2 weeks and capturing a spot. He goes, you come in for 10 or 12 weeks and you build programs that leave people better off than they were. And he goes, and ultimately you don't win these matches, like
Yeah.
I always try to leave people better off than they were. And I would never propose an angle that did not leave somebody better off. I guess the one where I went to Vince and said I'd like to win the Royal Rumble, challenge both champions because I wasn't on a brand, win a three-way dance and become a WWE undisputed champion. That was kind of all for me. And he shot that down in record time. He just said, literally, he didn't even think about it, Conrad. He just said, I have no interest whatsoever in doing that. And I said, okay, I've got this idea for me and Randy Orton. And then that idea with Randy Orton went on to be the best thing. I understand from the boys' perspective because I'm still one of the boys. Yeah. You want spots on the card. But when I come up, when I do these things, meet and greets, I'm asked the three most common things I'm asked about are Hell in a Cell, by far and away Hell in a Cell, Rock and Sock Connection, and the Rumble where I appeared as 3 different characters.
Yep.
So in that case, probably there were some people going, this guy's getting 3 spots. He's costing 2 people their spots. But guess what? Those 2 people would have been forgotten instantly. And instead, WWE, who is in the business of creating memories, came up with something that people talk about to this day that really made them happy. So, you have to find a balance. I think there are some pay-per-views that rely too heavily on part-timers who may not have the same interest of coming in and making the world a slightly better place for mankind. But I do think there's a time and a place for returning guys to come back. Sometimes you need them at the top of the card. That would speak more to WWE's ability to create stars, but I think they're getting better at that. Too much is not good. None at all is even worse.
I'm curious, after you've been out for a while, you're not a regular part of the crew. And I know that at times you described yourself as a bit of a loner, but you did have some pals that you would travel with from time to time.
Yeah.
Who are you hanging with here in '07, or do you feel like an outsider?
Well, I mean, I was not an outsider when I would get into the dressing room, but because I'd be flying in while the guys were already on the road, uh, anytime after 2000, well, beginning in 2000 when I was WWE commissioner, I was joining the rest of the crew en route. And so I was able to rent my own cars. The company would take care of my hotels. This is where they wanted me to stay at the TV hotels. And I'm like, I just want to stay I'm a 3-star man now, right? I'm no
Yeah.
longer the 1-star man. I'm a 3-star man, but I don't like a big foyer. I don't want a bar. I just want a place where I can go in and check in and have a comfortable bed. And so I would ask them if I could get my own hotel and then submit the bills to the company. And I was always bad on that. I'm not a good organizational guy. And so I would usually end up handing them my receipts after about 6 months, and there would be hundreds of them. But I was used to traveling on my own, so I would see the guys, and I really enjoy being around everybody when I got there. But I was on my own, as far as hotels and cars went, and I liked it that way.
It's a pretty short build we've got here. How you find out that they want you for this match? Like, it feels like I totally understand the idea of we're going to do 3 matches a year, and we're kind of almost throw one away with Umaga, but we're trying to make a guy. So okay, but then this feels a little random when it's compared to what you did with Flair or what you did with Orton or any of that stuff. Who pitches that idea to you? Is this something where Vince calls you and says, "Here's the big idea," or what do you recall of that?
This is probably a Brian Gewirtz
Okay.
call. Brian would usually be the guy to call me. It just struck me as we're talking about this that I was filming a pilot called Wrestling My Family, 2007 pilot for A&E. And we really felt like it was going good. This is pre-Holy Foley. And then it really felt like it was a good show. And the showrunner, who was like the director, Marcus Fox, had been the showrunner for Ozzy's show and Anna Cole's show, which were two of the biggest reality shows on TV at that time. And he felt like he had a winner. And after the second day, he says their only concern is there's not enough conflict in the family. And I said, Marcus, I told them when they pitched this, I said, we're not like those families you yell at each other. And they said, no, we're looking for a new family. That's passe. But I think in a lot of forms of entertainment, when push comes to shove, they want to rely on what has worked before.
Yeah.
And so when they came back for came back for additional shooting, we went from having nothing scripted, which doesn't mean there weren't produced elements, the Foleys are going on a cruise, the older kids are going on a cruise. I've got to hold down the little cruise with the little kids. I know that's happening. I know we're going to a racetrack. Like, we have to make fun stuff happen. But as far as the dialogue went, no one ever gave us any dialogue.